Hello, and welcome to Transformation by Truth podcast, where the called become the chosen, and those who have been dedicated to serve the Most High receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as we progress our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. My name is D.L. Anderson. I'll be your tour guide. Let's get started with today's lesson. Shalom, my friends. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast and the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. Today, we have a word of power from your host and a warning that the end is near and we are living in the last days. Today's podcast is entitled The Qualities of Strong Leaders, Part 5. Little children, let no one lead you astray. The one doing righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. 1 John 3:17. The podcast objectives are: analyze how leaders are living letters representing their congregations, reveal what happens to a ministry without a vision, and analyze how we become righteous via righteous leadership. You are our letter. As you can likely gather from our interest verse, this podcast will echo themes we discussed in part 4 of this series. I want to start by revisiting 2 Corinthians 3:2-3. In this passage, Shaul makes the following declaration: You are our letter, having been written in our hearts, known and read by all men, making it obvious that you are a letter of Messiah, ministered by us. In considering this passage, I believe most will focus on the congregation's need to adhere to and to follow the guidance of their leaders. This is why Shaul, in effect, says, You are our letter, making it obvious that we are your ministers. Notwithstanding, there is another dimension to this passage that I believe most don't consider. That is, the reality that our leaders are also our letters. They should reflect the spiritual men and women we aspire to be. Not only this, but their letter, i.e., their example, transcends the totality of the congregation. If you don't believe me, ask yourself this question: can an assembly survive if its leaders are spiritually compromised? The answer is surely no. However, an assembly can survive if everyone outside of leadership fails. Because even in this most drastic case, the leaders would survive and they would have the potential to build the assembly again. Here again, this is a most extreme and unlikely case, with a premise that these leaders are, in fact, observing the Father's will. And that makes it highly unlikely that their entire congregation would fail, perhaps even impossible. This is why we must hold our leaders to the highest spiritual standard. For not only does your spiritual life depend on it, the spiritual life of the entire congregation depends on it. It is a most critical matter of spiritual life or death. Thus, I would encourage every member of a congregation of righteousness to get in the habit of reminding your leaders of this powerful truth. You tell them, you are our letter, stay strong, and do not let us down. Where there is no vision. Of course, you should do this with a spirit of reverence, kindness, and terrific concern. Remember, the kingdom of darkness is working overtime to destroy strong leaders. For our enemies know this is the quickest path to destroying the entire ministry. Therefore, I call upon each member of the assembly to pray for your leaders. Remember, they have been given a charge to watch for your souls. Hebrews 13:17. Obey those leading you and be subject to them, for they watch for your souls as having to give account. Let them do so with joy and not groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you. No doubt, this is a powerful verse on leadership, and the primary reason why we must choose our leaders carefully. Namely, it's because we are to obey our leaders and to submit ourselves to them. Here's a question. How will you fare spiritually if you are obeying and submitting yourself to a leader who is not in the Father's will? The answer, you will not fare very well at all. These cases are not limited to occasions where a leader is caught in sin or continues in sin. This is true even though sin is widespread in the church circuit and leaders are not only at the forefront of the spiritual pandemic, they are the most prominent super spreaders. For that reason, I do not see a cause to belabor upon sinners who masquerade around as pastors, bishops, and elders in the church, or the blind sheep who are following them. A malediction is upon them all. However, there is a more critical example of disobedience as it pertains to leadership, and that is a scenario where the leaders have no vision. 'Tis a crucial fault that often transpires when a man tries to operate within an office he was not called to. In these occasions, the ministry will always fail. Not only this, but the congregation will be ravished by the enemy and ultimately scattered. Here is why. Anyone who operates in an office that he or she was not called to does so outside of the Father's will. He will not hear them. He will not guide them, and their people shall perish. For this is the conclusion of a ministry without a vision. Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But blessed is he who guards the Torah, as he is righteous. This is why John writes his congregation saying, little children, let no one lead you astray. This is a warning against the clear and present danger of a so-called leader without a vision. He is leading you astray. You'll know if you're in the Father's will because he will reveal his will to you. Trust me, he doesn't just reveal his will to leaders of his people. He also reveals his will to the people. If he didn't, everyone, even the most honest believers, could easily be led astray. For how would we know if our leaders were indeed leading us down the path of righteousness? Alas, we couldn't. This is why the Father has given every one of his people his spirit. Truly, it is his spirit above our leaders which leads us into all truth. John 14:16-17 reads, and I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to receive because it does not see him or know him. John 16:13, when he comes, the Spirit of truth, he shall guide you into all the truth, for he shall not speak from himself, but whatever he hears, he shall speak, and he shall announce to you what is to come. These verses prove clearly that we are to cleave unto the Spirit and allow Him to show us the Father's will. The problem is the church is filled with slothful servants who are spiritually inept, primarily because they don't invest the time required to become masters of their faith. Therefore, seeing as they are not hearing from the Spirit due to their spiritual inadequacies, they are forced to assume that their leaders are. 'Tis a dangerous assumption, for as I said in the most recent podcast, your soul is at stake. For this cause, I encourage everyone to labor spiritually and establish your own line of communication to the kingdom of heaven via the Spirit. Then and only then will you be able to validate the vision of the one who is leading you, and that he is indeed leading you to everlasting life. You'll know because the one leading you down this path will be a champion of righteousness. And you, as you follow him, will become increasingly righteous, as he is righteous, and as our Father in the heavens is righteous. Amen. Now, here is the final word. Whether you are leading or following, it is all about righteousness. On this wise, we perceive righteousness as an infinite cycle. For righteous leaders make righteous assemblies, and righteous assemblies strengthen their righteous leaders. That's who we are at Pinnacle of Holiness Ministries, and we encourage all the champions and assemblies of righteousness all over the world to stay strong and hold the line. The end is near, and we will soon have our reward. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, The Quality of the Strong Leaders, Part 5, and next, The Qualities of Strong Leaders, Part 6. I'll be posting that on Saturday. Until then, my friends, be led by the Spirit of Elohim, and I promise you, I will too. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember to tune in with us every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already, visit us at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and make sure you sign up to join the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life